Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this Around the Ropes radio show edition here. And guys, we have a very interesting guest joining us. You guys remember him from the world of ECW, Xcite Wrestling, and the start of Flex Wrestling. We're going to do all that. The man behind it all, the one, the only HC Loc, joins the show for the first time. How are you doing today, sir? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Doing very good. I've been really looking forward to this, especially, and I want to get started with the ECW part because obviously a lot of fans now may remember you more for like stuff with Xcite and all that, but you had a little bit of a run in ECW.
3 years, almost 3 years there. Yeah.
Now,
It was, go ahead.
No, I was saying, how did you find out about it and how did you get started in it?
In ECW?
Yeah.
Well, I was real lucky. I broke into pro wrestling at a school in Elmira, New York, back in 1994. I trained, had my first match in 1995, and there was a guy around there, two guys, Larry Winters and Hunter Q. Robbins, the third. They were both original ECW originals when it was when it was Eastern Championship Wrestling. So they'd gone back there a long time. And they just they really liked what I was doing, and they had a lot of kind words for me and wanted to put in some good words and they did that. And you're always doing that. In those days we'd mail videotapes out, right? And I mailed them a videotape every 2 weeks, at least. And you didn't hear. I got an opportunity to I was invited to Dory Funk Jr. was running the Funkin' Conservatory just after doing the classes that he would do for WWE. He would do them on his own, and I got invited to it. It was in Ocala, Florida. I went and spent a week there myself and another independent wrestler I started wrestling school with named Danger. He was a great talent. And that's where I met Amy Dumas, who would become Lita. She had just started at ECW. Anyway, I had a real good week there. And at the end, Coach Dory Funk, who I still call him Coach, I'll never forget. He sat me down and said, "I think you're a great carpenter," meaning that I could build a match. And it was the first time I learned that word. And he said, his quote was, "I think you could draw money for any company in the world. I think ECW would be a great fit for you, and I'd like to help." And I was speechless. And he called Tommy Dreamer for me. And I had visited ECW a few times up to that point. You just show up and you help with the ring and, try to be on your best behavior and make a good impression. But Coach Funk called Tommy Dreamer for me. And I showed up the next week at the Elks Lodge in Queens. And they let me have a tryout match before the doors opened. And they seemed to like it, Tommy seemed to like it. He says, "I can't offer you a full-time job right now today, but if you'd like to come to any ECW shows, any towns, you're welcome to come on in. And, who knows what could happen." So that turned into me, and this is a lesson for any young, hungry wrestler out there. It took 2 months, and that was when they were running 4 shows a week, and I went to every one of them. Drove myself all the way around the country. Got there early, helped set up the ring, worked out in the ring with Tracy Smothers before doors opened. Then stayed till the end, tore down the ring, and helped those guys. And Tony DeVito, who is my tag team partner in the Carnage crew, we started in Ring of Honor together. We've been tag team partners for 23 years. He was on the ring crew there in ECW. And he would go on to be one of the Baldies in ECW. So I had friends there anyway. So it just turned into that. So it took a couple months, and I will never forget. We were in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and Bill Alfonso came up to me and said, "Go find Chris Chetty, Danny Doring, Roadkill, Tom Marquez, the Baldies, and maybe somebody else." And said, "Go find them and bring them to me." I said, "Yes, sir," and I did. And when I got over there and everybody was gathered around, they were all sitting in a circle. Fonzie says, "Sit down." And boy, was I scared, And he says, "This meeting's about you." my eyes got huge. He said, I want you to know that over the last couple months, you've been working hard. You've been working out in the ring, impressing people. You've been busting your butt on ring crew. And every one of these people in this circle at one time or another have come to me and gone to bat for you and asked if you could be hired here. And I'd like to let you know that I talked to the office, and starting next week, you'll be on the payroll. Welcome to ECW. And they all shook my hand, gave me hugs and all that stuff. And I still can't believe how long that was. 99, I guess. So, I mean, that was a long time ago. And I still can't believe that happened. Was that 98, 99, maybe, you know? But I was real lucky, and I worked there until the company closed.
Now, when you're getting all these guys, Roadkill and everybody else, what's going through your head at that moment? Are you sitting there going, "Oh shit, am I about to be like what's going through your head at that moment?"
I am. Well, initially, I thought that it was just, run an errand, go, whatever, just do this for me. But I was conscious. I'm like, well, I've been around here for 2 months and I've never seen anything like this. And he hasn't asked me to do anything like this before. And if I can be real honest with you, I was kind of panicking because the night before that, I had found out that my wife at the time, my first wife, was pregnant. I was on the road. She called me. I called her from the hotel. No cell phones yet, at least not for me. And at that moment, and I think that this probably had something to do with it because I'd made the comment in the hotel with Tony DeVito and Angel. They were the Baldies, my friends. I said, "Man, this has got to. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do here. This is the dream. This is where I want to be, but I got to do the right thing. I got, already a couple kids at home, and now I got a brand new newborn coming." And so God, fate stepped in and all those things. So that's kind of was on my mind, where I'm getting all these guys, and I'm thinking, I wonder what's going on here. And I'm also thinking, how am I going to continue to do this? I'm trying to pay my dues, as we say in the business. I'm trying to earn my stripes, but I'm doing it for free which I was proud to do, but what am I going to do? And so that was kind of on my mind. And then it came again, whatever you believe in, God, fate, pro wrestling magic, it stepped in right then. It was the next day that this all happened. And I don't know if one of my friends who I told my wife was pregnant to had gone to tell somebody about it, but they figured it would be a good time to tell me that they wanted me on full time. But that was it. I started, and it wasn't a lot of money, and everybody makes jokes about the checks eventually bouncing in ECW, and that stuff is true. But it meant the absolute world to me, and it meant I was a full-time professional wrestler. That's where the paychecks were coming from, and I got to learn a lot, so it was great.
No, I can definitely imagine that. But now you get told that you're going to be in ECW. When was your first time in the actual ECW arena in South Philly?
Oh, had I been in there, it would have been just to help on the ring crew. It would have been 98 or 99, I'm sure. I was never there. I never got to go there as a fan. I mean, I was a fan the whole time, of course, but my first time ever being in that building would have been working there. And it might have been before I was actually hired. It might have been just, during those 2 months there after Dory Funk's camp and before I actually got on the payroll. But it's a real intimidating building, especially in those, but yeah.
Believe me, I've done Battleground Championship Wrestling.
Oh, yeah, I love it. That place, yeah.
And I remember the first time I went into that building was Tim Embler had done Icons. He was still doing the Icons show. And I remember walking in there. And obviously it's much different now than obviously it was back in the 90s. But just walking into that building, I had chills going down my spine.
Oh, yeah, man. It's funny when me and guys my age go in there now, because it's so opened up and it's got the beautiful production, and there's the bar on the left, and you go out and there's you've been there, how nice it is. And none of that was there. They had to, during the ECW run, they had to somehow acquire the business next door and make it all nice, and everything is, lighting trusses and beautiful in there. When I worked for ECW, I can remember the back door being a blue tarp that the talent had to go through to get in there. And if you watch those ECW television shows from those days, and there's an ECW banner hanging in the hard camera above the fans, me and guys like me are climbing the back of bleachers and throwing clothesline ropes and broom handles over that thing to try to. That building has upgraded a lot since then, for sure.
I can imagine. Obviously, as we've seen in this year, we've lost a lot of professional wrestlers. Obviously, the news broke today we lost Hulk Hogan, but I want to ask you specifically about somebody from the ECW world, and that's Sam.
Sure. Yeah.
What was it like working with him? If you think
he was. I got a great Sabu story. And it was, this might have been my first time in the ECW arena, actually. You might have just sparked a memory. But it certainly, I bet it was. It was before the show started, and Sabu came in, and he goes around to all the boys. And as you may or may not know, it's customary you say hello to everybody every day, And he goes around to all the boys, shakes their hand. How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? He's fast, going by fast. Sabu's a fast talker anyway. But, wants to say hello to everybody, get to his dressing room or whatever, and or dressing room, wherever he dressed, and that was it. Get on with the show. And he, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? He got to me. I think it was my first day in the arena, and certainly my first time meeting him. And he sticks out his hand. I'll try to get where my camera sticks out his hand, and he goes, "How you doing?" And I reach out my hand, and he goes like this. Turned his head. He goes, "Who are you?" Turns his head like this to me. And Angel of the Baldies is next to me, and he goes, "Well, this is Loc. He just started." And Sabu goes, "I don't need to know yet." And then he shook his hand, shook my hand anyway, but without looking at me. And I've told the story a million times to my wrestling students, stuff like that. If you think that was him being a jerk, it's not. It was. This is sacred to be here. It is an honor to be allowed in this dressing room. And he shook my hand anyway. And he's just going to make me earn it. You know what I mean? He can't just, I'm not saying it's not a welcoming. When you're a part of that family, when you were a part of that family, believe me, they would have physically fist fought for me or anybody like me after you got in there. But it's, you got to earn it to be, you can't just step in, you know what I mean? And he didn't know who I was, and he was going to make me earn it. And by God, he did. I did, and I was proud to do it. And, a few weeks went by, and, then he would come to me to say hello, single me out to say hello. I'd see him on indie shows after ECW folded, and was, like an old friend, which he was, and of course he passed recently, and it's this isn't exactly what you asked, but it reminds me so much of the Ozzy Osbourne thing. And that Ozzy just had that beautiful concert. You had people. I saw somebody post today. It's like he got to throw his own funeral, throw his own celebration of life. You know what I mean? Because he just passed a week or two later. The same thing with Sabu. He did that thing with Janela, and he got to be celebrated and have his and then he was just gone. It's amazing, but I'm so glad he got to do that.
It's funny you bring up Ozzy, and you don't see a lot in pro wrestling where wrestlers get to go out on their own, but Ozzy really got to go out on his own, doing what he loved doing.
It was beautiful. I mean, I can't, I'm supposed to be a tough old wrestler, but I'm an old man. You can't hide that. And I can't see now. I was tearing up watching him that last performance before he passed. Now it's like, I don't even know if I can watch it right now, But yeah, beautiful thing.
I was going to say, there's one clip that somebody posted. He was singing "Mama, I'm Coming Home."
That's the one. Yeah, and that's the one.
We've seen Ozzy over the years, and you see everybody headbanging the whole 9 yards. The crowd, everybody had tears.
Everybody, yeah. And I got it watching it. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it was tough.
Yeah, but it was beautiful. I mean, you can have, It's just a beautiful thing that he got to do that. And I can draw that comparison with the Sabu thing. He got to have that last match and have it be, and be celebrated. And then he was taken from us shortly thereafter. So as sad as that is, isn't it great that those legends got to kind of say goodbye? It's pretty cool.
Exactly. And I want to get back, with your career a little bit before we get to what's going on with Xcite right now. And then you
Sure.
said you were Ring of Honor for a little bit.
Yeah, I was there for 5 years. I was assistant booker. Yeah, I was. Well, I guess my title was locker room agent. But yeah, I was the first talent to ever go through a curtain in Ring of Honor. And Tony DeVito and I were Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions, and I still got the belt hanging in my man cave at home. And yeah, that was a great time.
Well, you bring that up, and obviously we know the tag team division of the old Ring of Honor was.
Sure.
You had the Briscoes, you had SAT, you had all these big names. As you guys were at the top of that division, how tough was that division, knowing you had so many viable people coming after those belts?
Full disclosure, we didn't have them a whole long time, but we got to wrestle all those guys. I'd say it was hard, but it wasn't. And we were all just being creative and together, you know what I mean? And it's funny because I can remember turning 30 years old in Ring of Honor, and my partner Tony, he was a few years older than me, and so those guys that you mentioned, they were all really good to us, and they were the young stars, but they looked up to us or treated us with respect because we were wrestling veterans, and we were the old guys then. Well, that was 24 years ago, and we're still teaming. So what are we now? But I can remember specifically the night we fought Homicide and Abdullah the Butcher, and I cut a promo about how I've been in this business for 8 years, and it was a big deal. Well, I've been in for 30 now, so it's time flies. But anyway, yeah, SATs, Briscoes, of course, God bless them. Who else was there? There was the Second City Saints, Punk and Cabana. We feuded with Special K for years there, but it was really. To me, it was some of my favorite times ever in tag team wrestling. I think it was what started a lot of what you see in tag team wrestling right now. For my taste, it's a little much now, but I think all old guys eventually say that. You know what I mean? I'm sure people said that about what we were doing at the beginning of Ring of Honor. But but us SATs, Briscoes, some of those other folks, great division.
And I've said this before, doing the show, that I've always said Ring of Honor, and I kind of have to differentiate. I have to put a difference in there for a second, because the Ring of Honor that we see now is not the same Ring of Honor that we saw back in the day. And I've said it for a while. If it wasn't for Ring of Honor, who knows if wrestling would be what it is now, because of how so many guys are now in WWE and in AEW and are at the top of those cards. And people don't realize they all started from the original Ring of Honor days.
They did, very much so. I mean, Ring of Honor picked up the ball intentionally when ECW folded. It was started by the RF Video guys mainly because they had the exclusive right to sell all the ECW tapes at the time, eventually DVDs. So now, what are we going to sell now? I guess we'll start our own company. Well, and that's how that happened, but yeah, these great future stars, and I feel very fortunate to be there, to have been there. There's all these guys you can mention, Punk and Joe and all these folks that went through there that went on to be, big stars and millionaires, and God bless them. And of course, that's not money I ever made by any means, but to get to be there with them and kind of be at the time the veterans. That some of these guys would, there's people, I don't want to embarrass anybody, but there's people that some people refer to as, or maybe they refer to themselves as the best in the world. And they would ask me to watch their match, but because everybody, at the time, everybody has to learn from somebody, And of course, then they surpass and go on these great heights, and they deserve every bit of it.
Now, going back to those old Ring of Honor days, did you kind
Uh-huh.
of have that sense when you're in the locker room and you're seeing guys like Samoa Joe and Punk and Danielson and Claudio that, we have something here?
Oh God, yeah. I can remember specifically thinking, because a guy like me, when ECW folded, that was our shot, at making it. You know what I mean? Because at the time there was nobody my height on WWE TV. So, but ECW, we were welcome, because they were the land of misfit toys. If you had talent, you could be there. So when Ring of Honor started, and it instantly had this buzz that first night, it was the building, the Murphy Rec Center is literally shaking, and there's a lot of these people that were maybe big on the indies in New York or New Jersey, but I'd been in ECW for most of this time, right? So I didn't have my finger on the pulse of who all the independent talent was. I didn't know a lot of them, so when Danny Moff comes in, Homicide comes in, and a lot of these Philly fans knew who these people were. And of course, some people bust down from, like Johnson bust them down from the city, and that place is going nuts. So the very first night, after Homicide jabs me in the forehead with a fork and drops me on my head with the cop killer, I'm laying there thinking, "Holy cow, we've got something here." It's like first show, it's like ECW's back, except for it's nothing like ECW. But as far as a viable, there's independent wrestling, and that's great, and it's what most of us do most of the time. But once in a while, there'll be a promotion where it's like, no, that's a place to have a job. It's a place to aspire to be there, And Ring of Honor felt like that the first night, and it was great, And obviously, like you said, it's different now. I'm sure they're making more money now, and that's great for them. But it's also, I liken it to WWE's ECW. It's cool that it still kept going, but that's hard to think of it as the same thing, but oh well.
No, I get it. It's funny. I'm not talking from somebody. I've never been an in-ring talent. I've always been given the fans' point of view. I'll always say, to me, Ring of Honor went until the old Ring of Honor, the one that I liked watching on and off periodically, to me ended when it got dropped. And we all remember the last match was Lethal versus Jonathan Gresham.
Oh,
because
yeah.
they did that last match, and then they weren't sure what the future was going to hold.
Right.
And
yeah.
then that's when W came in, and I still remember going back and watching. I mean, people forget another great name that came from the world of Ring of Honor. Nana, Prince Nana, came from.
That's right. Yep. Yeah, I was going to say that's where I met him, but it wasn't. He would come hang around in ECW a little bit, looking for a job like everybody, and that's where I met him. But yeah, I talked to Nana yesterday. As a matter of fact, but yeah, and look at how great he's doing. If it wasn't for Ring of Honor, there's no way he'd be there now. So many of these people, I mean, maybe talented people, the cream rises, but what a platform they had, so.
I mean, I'll just say it this much. And if this gets me, in trouble, I'll say it. I think if it wasn't for Ring of Honor, AEW wouldn't be around right now.
I 100% agree. There's that. I 100% agree. Where would they have even come up with this? I don't know what you want to call it, work rate style, or this, super indie stuff, and where it's more about, because even WWE at all times, and even WCW, there's been great matches forever, as long as the industry's been around. But it was still more about, I don't know, the show, the entertainment value, I guess, but, and that's great, but Ring of Honor, it was about that, but about, can you go in the ring? What is this match going to be? And I think that's very much was the vision for AEW as well.
Well, because also we can always go back to that first All In show in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody, no, and everybody sat there. I remember, and they're like, "Oh, well, this is AEW's first show." And I'm like, "No, it's not," because they weren't under the
Yeah.
AEW banner at that point. But
Right.
obviously, you finish up with Ring of Honor. How did you come across Xcite, and how did you get started with them?
Well, there was probably a big jump in between there. Just working indies for always, my whole life. Wherever you get booked, you have a few places that you enjoy more than others and stuff like that. But Xcite was owned by, it still is owned by Jonathan Musick out of Binghamton. Binghamton's only an hour and 20 minutes from my house, so it would be a place that honestly I didn't work for a bunch because I was just busy and running my business and raising my kids and and staying as wrestling busy as I needed to, for me at that point as an independent wrestler. And however it came about, I guess Sean Carr would have been the guy that reached out initially and asked if I would, come there and help and obviously wrestle, but just be kind of like a veteran presence in the locker room. You know what I mean? To watch the young guys matches and help structure things, and so I did that and really enjoyed it. Hit it off with Moose a lot. Really enjoyed that that he was a fan of production and making it not just be like a ring and a tarp set up and and somebody's lawn. He likes there to be video screens and lights and all, and I'm into that stuff. I love that. I love to make it feel like perception's reality. And if I as a fan walk into a building like that, I feel like, oh, okay, this place is legit. This place is the real deal, And so he liked that. That's how Johnny Moose likes to promote his shows, and that was the kind of shows I like. So I was very much keen to be a part of it, and in short order, I was on all of the shows, and then of course I'm skipping ahead here. It maybe 2 years ago or so, maybe more than that. Now we expanded as Xcite Wrestling and opened up the X2, a wrestling venue at the Arnott Mall, which is relatively close to me, and I teach the wrestling school out of there. And there's a lot of guys coming up, not just in Xcite, but really well known in the Western New York wrestling scene and East Coast wrestling scene that have come out of there. I'm real proud of those guys. And that came from my relationship with Xcite Wrestling.
It's funny. I live on Long Island, so I've actually had the ability to go to one Xcite show, and I remember this vividly. It was when you guys were still running in the mall.
Yeah.
The mall.
Yeah.
And I still remember the main event was a ladder match. It was Mike Skyros versus Sean Carr.
Yeah.
And I think I remember that was there was one ladder that they tried to use that somehow it broke, and they were still trying to climb the ladder. But it was destroyed. But I bring it up because, I travel far for shows. I've traveled from Long Island to Philly for Battleground, up to Binghamton for Xcite. I've traveled to Rome, New York already for shows. So I put the miles in, so to speak. And when I went to the one Xcite show, I was hooked right away. Because also what I liked is, I think the show started at like 5:30, and by 7:30 it was done.
Yeah, we stressed that. We really tried to, it's important to, if within a couple minutes grace period, if it says 5:00 bell time so many times in independent wrestling, and I'm not trying to dunk on any other promoters or any other shows by any means, because there's a lot that don't do this, but and so often it's just like, well, if they're not ready, and they don't start the show, or they don't open the doors, and that's how I'm a dad, right? And if I'm sitting and standing in that line and I got a couple fussy kids with me, and you told me 5:00 and it's 5:20 and I'm still standing in line or I'm sitting in my seat and what are we doing here? I'm thinking twice about coming next month. You know what I mean? So you have to deliver on things like that, and Xcite really tries to do that.
Yeah, and like I said, I definitely give them a lot of credit for doing that because I've been to shows already where they say, "Oh, doors open at 5." All of a sudden, it's 5:45, and they're like, "Oh, well, we still have to finish up." I'm like, "Then you should have said doors open at 6."
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
But I know you guys have Speedy Fest coming up.
We do.
Actually, just for people who are watching this, what exactly is Speedy Fest?
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if you and your watchers are familiar at all with Chicken Speedy, the Speedy sauce. It's fairly famous, I guess. State Fair Speedy sauce, it's called. It's a marinade for chicken normally. And I don't know how popular it is or how far wide reaching that is, but it's kind of a big deal around New York, and it was invented in Binghamton. So that's Speedy Fest. So every year they have for the Speedy sauce, and it's like a fair very much, but it's they always have concerts every year, big name artists, like actual touring acts with record deals and whatnot. In fact, this year R-Truth is going to do a set, and some other folks as well. But there's all kinds of vendors, every place is selling all kinds of food, but there's a lot of places in there that are selling stuff with different recipes with that Speedy sauce on it. And we've wrestled there, I don't know how many years in a row. I don't know. I think that they were doing it before I started working full time for Xcite. This is at least the 4th or 5th year that in a row that I'm doing it with them, and it's always 3 days in a row and hot. Oh my gosh! And of course, we always use a black canvas on on our ring, so that's my joke is always every time, it's wrestling. You're supposed to keep your shoulders off the mat. Well, you do in that black 90-degree weather in that black canvas because it is just miserable. But of course, I'm the old guy. It was last year, a year before Taya Valkyrie was in, and she got out of the ring, and my match had been right before hers or right after hers or something, and she's looking at me, and I'm 1,000 years old. She thinks I'm gonna die because I'm all sweaty and face is red and all this. I'm fine. It's all right. I'm a carpenter during the week, so it's either this or I'm on somebody's roof, So I'm used to it. It's okay. I'll live. But yeah, it's always a fun time. 3 days in a row when it's next weekend, whatever that is. I think it's the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So of August.
Now, obviously, you just said before R-Truth is going to be there, Ron Killens.
Yeah.
How big is that for you guys to have probably one of the biggest acts right now in WWE?
Well, right now, especially, right? Yeah, he's really been heated up lately. Not that he wasn't big before, but it's a big deal. He won't be. I don't believe he'll be. He's obviously not going to wrestle. But he'll be signing autographs and doing his concerts, and that means inherently, there's going to be a ton of wrestling fans there wandering around that little. It's like I said, it's like a fair, but it's not that huge. It's like it's a field, and there's thousands of people there every year, and having a guy like Ron there, that guarantees that of those thousands of people wandering around, a lot of them are going to be wrestling fans. Look, over there's Xcite Wrestling set up. We can go over and watch them for free, and we like them. Oh, good. Well, maybe we'll buy tickets to their next show, and so it's huge for us.
No, I get that. But now, obviously, we're at the halfway point of 2025 now, and we bring up Xcite. Who do you think within the Xcite roster is going to have a huge standout second half of the year?
Chael Connors. That's what I think. I don't mean to be biased. He's one of my students, but he's got a lot of training from a lot of places. But I feel like when you look around, not just Xcite Wrestling, but independent wrestling in the state of New York right now, he's that guy of ready for the very next step. You know what I mean? Does that mean that tomorrow WWE would call him? I don't know. They should, but there's probably a lot of steps in between there. But he's athletically gifted. He's got a great mind for it. and he's in fantastic shape. Looks like a wrestler. If I got it, and we have a lot of good talented folks there. But if I'm asked to pick one person that's going to have a standout year, it's going to be Chael Connors.
And if I'm not mistaken, he's with TJ Epics in CXR, right?
Yes, TJ Epics is another one of my students, one of my closest friends. He was with him all day today, and they are a fantastic tag team. And I would say, if you'd asked me about tag teams, I'd have said them. But they're decidedly, in Xcite specifically, they've wrestled everybody they can wrestle as far as tag teams go. So there's kind of a concerted effort for the next several months to let's see what these guys can do in singles matches. Not to say the team's not breaking up, nothing like that, but let's see what these guys can do in singles matches. And I think that, he's had quite a few, but we put Chael in the ring with Mike Santana a few months ago, and maybe not that long ago. And, just, okay, kid, step up. Let's see what you can do. And he did. And they had a main event that was worthy of being called a main event. And that's going to be the guy to watch.
I mean, you bring up somebody like Mike Santana. That's somebody who you would love to have that match with, to kind of put yourself on the wrestling map, so to speak, especially with what he's done right now as we start TNA Slammiversary this past weekend. But
yeah, I mean, the best thing you can do, right, as an independent wrestler is get in there with somebody that you can help spread your wings a little bit, maybe get yourself noticed by being with this guy that's so hot.
But now I want to get to Flex Wrestling, Finger Lakes Extreme Wrestling.
Excited about that.
How did this come to fruition?
It happened fast. Always I've wanted to promote my own shows, type of thing. I've always but I say always, but it's been in the back of my mind. It wasn't this thing that eventually I'm going to do this. I've always just kind of known, I bet I could do that, and because I've booked in a lot of places, and I've been, one of the locker room leaders and trained a bunch of wrestlers, and about the only thing I haven't done is run a promotion. But how it basically came about was one of my very closest friends and students, Ryan Rice, Ref Ryan, we call him. He is a fantastic independent referee, fantastic, but he loves doing the production stuff as well. And we chat all the time, and it just kind of came about where we were talking about, well, what if there's been some discussion in Xcite, and Xcite's doing great, but there was talk of, well, what if they run more in Binghamton and less up by where we are, that we talked about that. And I don't think that that's going to happen, by the way. I'm not trying to conflate these stories, but I always said, well, then, maybe we can do something else. You know what I mean? We could run something more for the local fans where we're at. And not really thinking anything of it. And Ryan texted me one morning and said, Flex Wrestling, Finger Lakes Extreme. And I said, that just flows so well to me, and I love it because we're in the Finger Lakes, part of the state, part of the country here, and I like that local branding. It's not a dream to get national television or anything. It's the goal is to serve underserved markets where they don't get wrestling. Go to some of these small towns, go to some of these wineries, stuff like that the Finger Lakes are known for. And he presented that to me, and I said, "Holy cow, that's great!" And simultaneously, the same week, I had a conversation with the folks who own the Mud Creek Bison Ranch in Savona, New York. And I went to high school in Camp El Savona, is what it's called here. They're neighboring towns. So I literally know everybody in the town. Small town guy. I run a construction company in the town, and I'm the only professional wrestler that's ever been on television, within a 100-mile radius of here. So, I kind of know everybody. And this Bison Ranch had opened up, and it's a restaurant, and they wanted to put a stage in there to have bands and stuff like that. And I was in there, and I just took my family. Ryan came with me, and we had a nice dinner and looked around at how beautiful this huge building is. And they'd invested a ton of money in a gorgeous stage, and there's lights in the ceiling for. Oh, maybe we thought we'd have MMA here someday. I said, oh yeah, how about having pro wrestling here? And the guy's eyes got big, and he said, we were going to talk to you about having pro wrestling here. And I said, Ryan and I have been talking about this new company, and this is right here in my hometown. I think it'd be the perfect place to do it. And they agreed. So I really can't wait for everybody to see this venue. It's got a huge stage on it that would rival anything you'd see at a rock concert, and I'm not exaggerating. And they invested a lot of money in the speakers and the lights and all the things. And we, on our half, have made sure that we've stepped up our production a lot. I mentioned earlier, that's one of the things I love about Xcite, and there's going to be some cool stuff in store with a lot of that Flex Wrestling yellow and black branding on it for the fans to see on September 26th when we debut there. And it came together very fast. I know that your question was, how did it come together? I think that if I'm not mistaken, Ryan pitched the name of Flex Wrestling to me on July 1st, and by July 16th, we had an entire card booked, all the talent was booked, all the graphics were made, the deal was made with the building, the licenses, insurances, and all the things you got to do with the state, and we announced our first show on July 16th, so just over 2 weeks later. Now, so it really came together fast. We've talked about it for a long time, so it wasn't that hard to put it together that fast. And of course, I've been in the business for 30 years, so we kind of knew how to do it. But it happened fast, and we're super excited about it.
And then before we go further, I just want to show I know it's not a great shot of it, but it was the one I can grab, guys.
Yeah, which great.
In the beginning, obviously, I know it's a little bit fuzzy, but I hope any wrestling fan can figure out who's the guy behind the word in the beginning, and that's ECW. Just going down the list, WWE superstar, the one and only Rhino.
Yeah, he was the first guy I thought of, and he's such a. I love the guy personally, anyway, and we said if we're going to do this, let's bring in somebody that even the small town fans would know, somebody that's been on television enough. So help get people in the door that first time. And I texted him right away. And we made that deal in 5 minutes. And so we're excited he's going to be in town. I don't know if you got a chance to see it yet, but he cut a nice promo for us. We put music to it, and it's been on our Facebook page and Instagram, and we've shared that around. And we're getting a lot of local buzz here where we're at. It's a real big deal, because something like this has never come to to this particular small town, and the timing was just right. This venue opened up. I happen to know the owners; they know me from being a wrestler, and Rhino's a friend, and came together quick, and it's going to be a big deal. And I really hope that people take a shot on us September 26th. You won't regret it. It's going to be one heck of a show. The card is already, like I said, it's already booked. All the talent's already lined up, and it's going to be a fantastic night.
And so obviously go to Flex Wrestling for all information as far as graphics and ticket information. Yes,
sir. Search us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Ryan, again, is Ryan Rice, Ref Ryan. He's my social media guy. It's unlucky if I can type a status on Facebook for myself, but he's good at all that, So he's got the TikToks and the things and the this, the that, and the other. I don't even know what they're all called, but Flex Wrestling's got all that stuff, so we're easy to find. And I hope everybody will do me a favor and check us out.
Absolutely. HC, last question I have for you before we wrap things up here for tonight. You've had a
Sure.
long career. You're still still wrestling now.
Yeah.
Do you have a dream match? Being that you've been in this industry for as long as you have.
I don't, I've got to live most of my dreams. I mean, I think, I think of that a lot. I don't really know that I do. I feel like I've wrestled everybody in one form or another, or at least been in the ring with everybody who was ever at ECW. So that's cool. ECW. And, a lot of the guys that are stars today, as you mentioned earlier, they were in Ring of Honor. So I worked with all them, and some of the stars today were, were just kids. So I think my only dream matches are the ones that I'll never have. As many times as I shared a locker room with Terry Funk, I never got to wrestle him. And stuff like that. I would have loved to wrestle Stan Hansen. I don't see that happening. Stan's not putting the boots on anymore, and if he did, he could beat me up in 2 seconds. But I've got to do a lot of things. There was one that came up a couple years ago where Tony DeVito, my partner, and I, Carter's crew, were booked to wrestle Matt and Jeff Hardy, and we kind of know them a bit from forever ago, and but that was kind of going to be a big deal. That was when, like, I don't know if you saw, right around that same time, SAT had wrestled Matt and Jeff, and I think maybe they'd wrestled FTR, and there was this company, Big Time Wrestling, and they were bringing in tag team stuff, and we kind of got thrown in that loop. We're like, all right, we're going to wrestle FTR, we're going to wrestle Matt and Jeff, and the day they announced it and put out the poster, that was the night when Jeff got in trouble again. And it was, that PR, and God bless him, he's doing great now. But then that kind of PR mess happened, and they canceled the show completely. And I don't even think that company ran. They're doing it again now. I don't think they ran for a while. So that one didn't happen, and that kind of stung. I'm not a big, as far as, boy, I'd like to wrestle that big name person because, I've had a good career myself. I'm not a legend necessarily. To some people say I am, but I think that's pretty generous. But that would have been cool because we're these two tag teams that have been around for a long time. Them obviously bigger stars than us. I'm aware of that, but it would have been cool for the fans and cool for us. So I wish that happened. I guess I mentioned one in there. If Tony and I could wrestle FTR, that would probably be the biggest dream we could do right now because they're so fantastic, and I feel like Tony and I can still go. So that would be my one match I have left on the bucket list.
Absolutely. I got one last question for you. Obviously,
Sure.
You've done the behind-the-scenes stuff with Xcite. You're now running your own with Flex.
Yeah.
This is going to be an out of the ballpark question because we're going to go with this in a second. Who are some of your favorite ring announcers that you've booked on shows?
That I've booked on shows?
Yeah.
Chris Gullo is my favorite. He's a Xcite guy. But he's moved south, but he'll come up once in a while. He's fantastic. My student, Malcolm Calloway, who was a wrestler and then he got hurt, is the current Xcite ring announcer, and I feel like I'm probably pretty biased there, because he's real good at what he does, but I love him so much personally that I get a kick out of just seeing him standing out there with a microphone in his hand. I really like Nick Russo. He's a guy from Buffalo that doesn't get to travel out of that area very much or work very many quote unquote bigger shows that get a lot of attention, and I'm proud to say that he's going to be involved with Flex Wrestling. So I think in a commentator role. So I'm real happy to have him on board, and I think it's a good opportunity for him. I'm sure I'm forgetting some, but those are some of my favorite independent ring announcers.
Absolutely. Again, HC, I appreciate you coming on tonight. It meant a lot. Definitely would love to have you back on again, especially as we get closer to the debut show for Flex.
Sure, please. Let's set that up. Yeah, I'd love to do it.
And I also would love to have, if you're okay with it, I'd love to have talent on as well to help.
Oh, please, 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 as often as you can. When we're done here, if you want to, I can get you a list of talent, and we can set that up as often as you'd like. It would be a big help for us.
Absolutely, and I would definitely. But HC, before we let you go, where can fans connect with you on social media? And if you want to promote the Xcite stuff and Flex, once again, the floor is yours.
Best thing to do is if you search HC Loc on Facebook, I will come up. It's that it'll be a picture of me and my dad. That's the best way. That's what I update the most often of anything that I have. My real name is Matt Knowles. I think people are probably pretty aware that I wasn't born HC Loc. My mom didn't even name me that. But if you search, you'll forget that. Unless you know Beyonce's dad's name, that's also Matt Knowles. I used to get phone calls for Beyonce in the middle of the night all the time. It's a true story. But if you don't remember that, just search HC Loc and I'll come up. And every day there's something on there for Xcite and now Flex Wrestling. Every day we're pushing real, real hard. And if you ever need a good residential contractor, that's on there too. So.
But again, HC, I appreciate it a lot. Can't wait to see what you guys pull off with Flex, and can't wait to see what you guys continue with the success of Xcite.
Thank you so much. Then thanks for having me.
Absolutely appreciate it. Guys, for HC Loc, the ECW legend himself, I know he hates that people call him that, but I look at it this way. Anybody who came from that company, to me, is a legend.
It means the world to me, John. Thanks so much.
Guys, this has been another edition of the Around the Ropes radio show. Coming up next, we have our tribute show to the late, great Hulk Hogan. Stay tuned for that. We'll catch you guys next time.